Okay, now we're ready. We have a lot of bloopers, by the way.
Perfect.
Because I keep pushing it and then we're not ready. Okay, ready?
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Hillary.
I'm Davida.
We're the two Pilates Chicks. That was our theme music for 2024, our first episode.
The new year.
Woo! Season 5, episode 1.
Yes.
We got 17 episodes in 2023. We're at 1.
Yes. Back to 1.
Back to 1. So happy New Year. Thanks for joining us in this 2024.
Yeah. Isn't that weird?
Yeah, it is weird. Considering we're not really there yet.
We're recording
in December, yeah. So this episode is on difficult conversations with clients. So if you listen to our year end for 2023, we got a lot of questions that all kind of fell into this category.
Yeah, they actually connected very strangely well.
They just threaded. It was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. They all were like, we should just put this in that episode.
Yeah, because we'd already picked this topic for our first episode of this year. Mm-hmm. And then the questions we got for the year end just really
fell into it.
Yeah.
So
perfect.
Thank you. You gave us our outline.
Yeah, it was perfect.
It was perfect. Yeah, so there's a lot of the more you teach in these difficult conversations. And I'm not one for confrontation.
Yeah.
So these are always hard
it's
things.
Always hard.
And you learn.
Yeah, and you learn with experience. And there's everything from we'll go through clients late canceling a lot, clients texting you too much or at obnoxious hours, or clients being combative and not
wanting to do the exercises you want them to do.
Yeah. And there's so many things, and people go through all of them, and they're so common.
They really are, which you can see by the questions that we got, that we both were like, oh yeah. We hear that, yeah. And we still deal with this.
Some of these things we're dealing with
you
right
said
now.
You're dealing with some of them right now.
Yeah, and I'm helping somebody else deal with the same one, with her clients right now too. And so we all have these different experiences.
Do you want to, so I don't know how you want to hit this. Do you want to go with the...
Well, I think the easiest one is discussing the business hours.
Yeah.
Because that's a basic boundary issue. It's something that I've dealt with as well. I think everybody has. Where...
how do you handle that client that texts you at night?
Yeah, 10 p.m.
On the weekend, if you're not working.
Yeah. Just times where it's obviously not an appropriate business relationship text where essentially it's up to us, right?
We have to set that boundary.
We have to set the boundary. And so, for example, for myself, what I've decided to do is I will not answer a text after 8 p.m. Or email. I just will not send messages to clients after that time. Now, I could also pick an earlier time.
That's true, yeah.
And it just kind of depends. And I think we just have to pick our own business hours and stick to it.
Yeah, because it's kind of if you had a 9-to-5 job, although it does blur there too for people I hear.
It does, yeah, especially these days.
But I also started a thing because I realized if I woke up first thing in the morning and then started answering texts and emails, my morning was ruined.
Yes.
And I like to have my routine in the morning of coffee and a walk. So I've made it not only the boundary of the evening hour, but I won't answer or look at it until 8 a.m.
100%. Yep.
So I'm when I'm heading out to do my day, that's when I'll look. And then if something's an emergency, I need to respond right away, I will. Otherwise, I'll wait till I get into the space.
And that's a really, really good decision, because we have to be in a good headspace for ourselves.
We do. We have to be relaxed. We have to be clear. We have to be focused and centered and grounded. And if I wake up and immediately am bombarded with, can I move my time? And or I can't. It just sets me off into chaos.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's too much.
It's too much.
And then we can't be there for the clients that are coming in that day, and then we feel stressed. And So I think it is really important, just as a basic practice, pick your office hours. If it's 9 to 5 or 8 to 7 or whatever it is that works for you. And just do not respond to messages past those boundaried times. And clients will get it.
I mean, it's not like, the thing is like, haven't you ever had where they text you at this off hour before you set your boundaries and you'd answer and then you'd hear nothing back?
Yeah.
So they're not sitting by their phone waiting for you to like, they're not sitting there going, why is she not answering?
Yeah. And if they are,
well, get a life.
Too bad.
No kidding.
Well, that's one of the boundaries. If they are like, I don't need to message you, that's my own boundary.
I mean, I think sometimes clients don't, I mean, it's not that they're being selfish, but I think a lot of times it's like we have this like life outside of the studio, but to them
we are the studio.
We are in the studio.
Yeah.
So I think it's sometimes they don't, but you know, if you're like, oh, I'm sorry, you know, I was blah blah blah, and they're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, and I don't even give an excuse anymore. Like, oh, sorry, I didn't see this. Like, I'll just answer their text when it's appropriate for me to get to it.
Yeah.
And I think just setting that boundary is very important because they will then respect it more. And even if they don't, well, it doesn't matter. They're not getting a response when it's my time.
Right. And it's the same thing when you're teaching, right? Like when I'm teaching and I have back to back to back to back.
Yep.
I'm not going to run over and take time when I need to prepare for the next client.
Very true. Yeah.
To sit there and go through on my time where I have time to chill and run to the bathroom, whatever I need to do.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, at the end of the day, it's like, now I can answer you before I shut it all down.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's also a good boundary discussion, the time between sessions. If somebody comes late, I'm not going over their time for them into the next.
Or the ones that show up early.
Yeah.
And then want you to start early, but you're cleaning and you need that time to like
reset.
Yeah. Yeah, no.
Yeah, and that's one thing, like speaking of difficult conversations, I had a client who was doing that constantly.
That's why I thought of it, because you had told me that story.
And this is somebody who also bleeds into another issue of canceling a lot and keeping the spot. But so this person, when she had one certain time, it was right after my half-hour break I give myself after teaching, like from 7 a.m. through to lunchtime. I'm like, I need that half hour to eat and breathe and reset. And she would be the next person right after my break, and she would start coming in because my studio's attached next to a gym. She would go into the gym and then kind of peek in. Oh, well, you're not doing anything. So can we start early? You're like, no, you need give me like 10 more minutes. And it's like, that's when your session starts.
Yeah, no.
And it's hard to find the right way to say that. And I'm like you, like it's hard for me to be that confrontational in that sort of an environment. But you gotta find the way to say it. You've gotta
find the way to say it. And I think it gets easier as you have to, because these are like things that you run into. It's not one time only in your life of teaching.
Yeah. It's over and over.
It's over and over and over. So you start to learn, okay. And you can see it coming a lot of times with, you know, the oh, this is where we're going. So I need to nip it in the bud now.
Yeah. And that comes with experience. But even still, like I deal with that still.
Yeah. Well, I have where, and the other thing is like when you're setting off the kind of the boundaries in terms of the off hour, you know, blah, 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 texting, email, phone calls, whatever. It's like, those are the ones also that usually you're going to have to deal with in terms of late cancel, they're wanting to change something around. Yeah. It's not something that it was like, because to me, those are the ones, it's like, that's the emergency time. It's like, I need to do, oh, I'm so sorry, da 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 da. And so that's getting into that whole, how do you handle
those bad habits?
And those kind of, the ones that cancel like
25 hours.
or 24:30. So it's like, right. And this happened to one of my students. She's like, they canceled technically under 24 hours, but by the time the texting had gone back, it was like, because it was so like, and at that point she's like, what do I do? Do I charge her? Yeah. And it's like, and this was my thing with that is like, is it something that happens a lot? Do they change their time a lot? Do they cancel a lot? And she's like, yes. And I said, then yes.
Then yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing. I'm pretty strict with my policies.
I'm very strict.
I try to stay very, very strict to them because it's only fair, but also it tries to kind of nip bad habits with the clients. But also the more you let somebody do that,
the more they're going to do it. Yeah, and I think also when it comes to those kind of, you also learn with your clients. There are those, so I tell my clients the first time they do it, because I don't really know them, right? Like they do it and you just start teaching them or whatever, so that the habit doesn't, you say, well, this time, I'm not going to charge you. I do have the 24-hour, but I give a freebie every year for emergencies.
Yeah.
And then that just reinforces, hey, I have this policy.
Yeah.
But I'm doing you a favor. Just know that you've used your one for the year.
Yeah.
But then those clients that never ever do that, and then when they do it,
totally
it's an emergency. You know it's like, I'm not going to charge you.
Yeah, that's an actual needed time that they have to get to do something that never happens.
Yeah.
And that's a different situation.
Yeah.
So it really depends person to person.
Exactly. And you've got to kind of make that decision for yourself, because they're your boundaries. It's your time. So what are you willing to put up with?
Yeah. What's okay?
What's okay for you?
Yeah.
Because for me and you too, we have clients that want in, and we could have given that slot. It's not about it is about your time and your money, but the thing is, you could have had someone in that slot that wanted to be there.
Yeah.
And now it's too late for you to get them in, because they're like, well.
Well, and so for that reason, I know a number of Pilates studios and PT clinics who are starting to increase their window of cancellation policy.
Like 48 hours or 36 hours.
Yeah. And so I've started to do that, where I'll remind people like, hey, I have a quote unquote 48-hour cancellation policy, but I'm not necessarily being as strict in charging in the full 48 hours, but it's trying to give the clients, like, it's trying to initiate an idea for my clients that you need to plan. Yeah, you need to give me more time. Yeah. You need to let me know.
Yeah. And I think the other thing, here we go, New Year, lost my thought, first time. But I started because of that conversation we had with the 36-48. I used to check in with my clients as in the morning before their day. So it was over 24 hours, but the
when
day
they
before.
had their session, like the next day.
The next day. Yeah. And then I was like, you know what? That's not working. So I went to Sunday. So Sunday in the morning before I go on bike ride, whatever we do, whatever I'm going to do, I will just go, hey, I have you for Tuesday at your normal time, blah, 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 just a reminder. And then they'll come back and say, oh, I was going to text you. Can I change it? Yeah. So everything is like, so then I feel like, hey, you confirmed.
Yeah.
And now you're texting me right under 24.
Yeah.
Guess what?
It's pretty frustrating, and I know some people feel, I do too, like a little disrespected by it.
Yeah.
But I think for a lot of clients, it's not intentionally being disrespectful. Lot of people, most people who are not in our field or an appointment-based one-on-one kind of field, like therapists and doctors.
It's not a thought process.
They don't understand it, you know?
No.
So it's not just the money thing, like you're saying, but that is a part of it. But it's also being respectful of our time, and that we do have other people to accommodate. And so I've been thinking, for the last few years, I've been trying to do like year-end email, like happy holidays, starting in the new year, just a reminder, these are the policies.
That's what I did.
And it's helpful because you're restating it, like reinforcing the cancellation policy, the no late cancels. And I know some people who are being very strict. They say you get 3 late cancels, and after you do 3 late cancels for the year, you're forfeiting your time.
That's
so it depends.
I mean, I get it though, because if you have if
you have a wait list. So it depends on the teacher, and it depends how strict you want to be, and it depends how you want to enforce these boundaries for your business. And how to enforce those conversations.
Yeah, and I also think if you're doing the boundaries that suit for you, then those clients do respect you more because you're this is the way I run my business, and they're like, okay.
Yeah, and I think it's a good way to think of it, like, this is our business.
It's a business. Yeah.
We're not just a person hanging out in the studio with someone for a while. It's like, this is our business. We're running a business, and whether or not you have your own studio or work for somebody or like rent from somebody, it is your business.
Yeah, it's your time.
And so similarly, like when people, another difficult conversation, if somebody comes in and is asking about prices, and then they want to know what kind of deal they can make, or oh, well, over there it's only $90. Why is yours one?
And if I come twice a week, then can I have a discount because of this? I had a new client. She stayed because I set that boundary right off the bat because I could see where she was going. She's like, what are your prices? And I told her, and she's like, well, I'm gonna come a lot, so can you give me a discount? And I said no, this is my, and she really tried, she really did, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't, this is my price. But then, I give in December, where if they buy their package, even if they don't need the package, I give them a free session.
Yeah, and that's a nice gift for recurring clients.
Yeah, because she was a new client. I don't give discounts for new clients. I feel that reward goes to those that have been coming to you.
I agree. Yeah.
That those are the ones that are showing up and coming here, and those are the ones that should get some sort of reward for that.
Yeah. I'm definitely on board for that.
No new client.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, because then I feel like if you start, and again, this is a business choice, but if you start a discount with a new client, they're starting at a lower rate, and then when they start returning, it's like, well, why do I have to pay more now?
Yeah.
So you're kind of discounting your work at first.
Yeah.
Whereas otherwise, if you're giving a free session or not a free session, never call it a free session. If you're giving it a gift session,
it's like it's a year-end thank you.
Yeah.
Here's your year-end thank you. Buy a package this month, and you get a free session.
Yeah, and it's an extra little thing, and
an extra little gift for you.
And that's a thank you to those clients.
Yeah.
For respecting our time, for returning to sessions,
for being here all year.
Yeah,
or years, whatever it is.
But that is a hard conversation when someone wants to discount your cost, because it feels very personal, because it feels like you're kind of discounting.
And I feel like it goes into that whole, the boundaries and confidence of us as teachers to realize, no, we're worth this. This is, we've been through this many hours of training. We've done this much education that never stops, and so they're paying for that expertise. Of whatever it is in a class, because even in classes they'll want a deal,
like a group class.
They'll still want, and it's like, another thing is like, what if you're in business for yourself and you're paying for your utilities, you're paying for your whatever.
It's expensive. And I had somebody walk in and say, oh, well, how much do you charge? Oh, well, I pay this much over there. And I smiled at her. I said, well, then you can go there.
Yeah. I love that story.
And I wasn't being mean. I was just like, I literally have nothing to say.
I have no answer for you.
You're welcome to go over there. She said, oh, but I want to come over here. I said,
these are my prices.
Yep. And I was just very kind and straightforward. I said, that is what it is.
Yeah. And I've had people, because I keep my door open, and you probably have it, that was a situation the same way, where they're like, oh yeah, I've been doing Pilates, blah blah blah, how much do you charge? Oh, well, that's too much.
Yeah.
And then I'm like,
sorry. Okay, well, I can recommend other studios.
Yeah. But I mean, the thing is like, as you move through your journey, it's like you've got to be confident in what you charge, how you set those boundaries.
What your hours
are. And those are difficult things to like step up and like hold your ground.
Yeah.
For some.
Definitely, and it can work out. Well, it will always work out in the right way. But it can take some time sometimes to figure it out. And similarly, like one of the price stories, like during the pandemic, right when I switched to virtual, and I had a client who worked with me in the studio, and then we were switching to virtual, and she wanted it to be cheaper. And I said, nope, no, this is my price, and it's still an hour of time. And she was trying to argue about a duet session with her daughter. Maybe it should be this price, not that. And I said, well, if you feel like you get more out of a private, you're welcome to each schedule separate privates. Which would then entail being more in the long run.
Exactly.
But it ended up being that, you know, and I was very nervous about this conversation, feeling kind of like sick about it. But I was like, no, I know that this is what it should be. And she ended up just taking sessions all through the pandemic. Yep, and paying that price.
Because it's basically still the same time teaching.
Yep.
You know, you're not like
same expertise.
Yeah, same
amount of time. Yeah.
And then that kind of leads into the next question in a way.
Mm-hmm.
That client, this kind of came up, and it's, we all have it. I have one now, one. And that client that doesn't want to do that, maybe they dictate what they want in their workout, or they dictate what they want to do in terms of exercises, or no, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
And kind of like fighting you on that whole, like, you're obviously guiding and teaching this client and what they need for their body, and they're going, no.
Yeah.
I want to do this.
Yeah. Or I do that exercise this way.
Yeah.
And we
I do it this way, yeah.
That's how I do it.
This is how I do it.
And we've touched on this a bit in a previous episode.
I feel like it was the one on the personalities of clients.
I think so, that line of episodes. But I mean, and it was a series.
It was a series.
It was a series. Yes, that's the word I was looking for.
A series. I know, I had to think about it too.
But yeah, if you have that difficult client and they're trying to dictate their workout, I think in some ways, depending on the reasoning that they're saying no to something, sometimes we can go along with it and not give them certain things if it's a reasonable reason.
A reasonable reason.
If something doesn't work for their body, of course, if there's an injury, some sort of contraindication, but if they're just being
difficult,
kind of,
and you would know that, being jerk,
thinking they know more.
They have those clients, yes.
So sometimes honestly, I just say, okay, whatever, and I just won't give that to them, but I'll sneak that movement in a different way.
Yeah.
If I think that it is a valuable movement for them, if they do need it.
If they need it, yeah. And I feel like a lot of times, since there's, like you said, finding out kind of why they're saying no is key.
Yeah.
Like, is it because they're scared?
Yeah.
Is it because there's pain?
Yeah.
Is it because they're just being difficult and just like, because I know for me, like when my teacher says, oh, we're going into high swan, I'm like, ew, in my head. But I do it, but she knows I don't like it.
Yeah.
But she knows I need it because we're working on stuff.
Yeah.
So understanding that and then going with that client, okay, I understand they're scared of this, or I understand there's a fear of pain of this, or I understand they're unsure, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But I had one client that we were doing something and she was like, I don't like how that, and she was just like fighting this exercise. And I was just like, okay, do what you want. And I was like, I'm not going to argue with you.
Yeah.
And what's funny is over time, as I've kind of backed off when she's like been like that, is all of a sudden she's turned around. So now she's not as combative. And she's starting to trust. But I would push to a certain point and I'd be like, okay, whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
She's not going to hurt herself.
Yeah.
So
and
I'm
that's
like,
a different issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But finding out, or like when your client does have a pain and you're like, well, I want to maybe see where they are, and you say, well, how about this today?
Yeah.
And they go,